Nice you married her twice. Good morning. Good to see everybody here this morning. We're going to go get started. So we're going. If as far as announcements are concerned, one thing we want to ask everybody, please remember. Everybody probably already knows this, of course. Miss Ann Wesley lost her son yesterday. One in Alabama. So he passed away. We're waiting to get some arrangements. Let everybody know. Please remember that family. She's gone down, as well as all the rest of the family's gone down to Montgomery to be with the family, which is understandable. So prayers for their safety as they travel, and of course for healing and comfort while they're there. So please remember them in your prayers. As far as anyone else is there anyone else that we know of specifically that we need to remember in our prayers that we haven't already? It's not already in our bulletin. I know there's some folks that we're supposed to have in our bulletin. If they're not, take a look at it and let me know if they're not in there, because we want to make sure we get them in there. Maddie Murphy. Yes. Cousin. No, it's. I okay. Yeah, she's caught up in an addiction. Please remember that family in your prayers. Anyone else? Next month, the 19th, Brother Dorian Flynn will be here, coming to pick up all of the clothing. The 19th. He's going to come and he's going to talk about the work that's going on in South Africa for class, and then he's going to preach that Sunday morning. So I'm looking forward to hearing him. But he's coming to pick up all the clothes over there in the block building and be out for another run. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? Yeah, that's in a bulletin. We got 10th of next month. Anybody else? Anything else? Anyone else we need to pray for? All right. Well, let's go ahead. Yep. Yeah. We need to remember Sonia. Yeah. She said she was going to try to get here. We got our wheelchair, so hopefully that. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Okay. Remember Larry Flowers having some problems with his teeth. Getting uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. So keep him in your prayers as well. All right. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we're thankful for the day, and we're grateful, Lord, for being here this morning. We pray your blessings on us as we go through our study. We ask, Lord, that you bless those that we've mentioned this morning. We ask that you be with the families of those who have lost loved ones. We ask that you be with the Shields family and the Wesley family, and the issues that are going through and the passing of loved ones. And we ask that you comfort them and strengthen them. We ask that you be those who are sick. We ask that you give them their health back and be your will. They can come back and be with us once again. We ask that you be with those who are traveling or on the road and away from their families. Especially, Lord, be with those who are serving overseas. both in the military and are stationed overseas and are not going to be with their families this holiday season. But also, Lord, we ask that you be with the missionaries, those people who are serving overseas in your kingdom, that are preaching and teaching and are separated from their families by long distances in some cases. We pray, Lord, that you give them strength and give them comfort, give them peace. Thank you, Lord, for what you do for us. We're grateful for all of our blessings, that all we have comes from you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So, last week we were talking about the word for sin. Talked about the words for sin. And the words we came in with the Old Testament, there were three that we particularly looked at. One was transgression, right? The idea of iniquity. It's an act of rebellion. Is essentially what that word means. It's rebellion. God has put something into place, and we've rebelled against it. He set a standard, and we've rebelled against it. It's in the closest terms for human beings, it would be the idea of treason. When we think about the idea of treason, there are a lot of things that go into treason. If I decided that I was going to take up arms against the United States government, and I was going to try to overthrow it in some way, shape, or form, a lot of things that I would do in order to make that happen, but my overarching crime is treason against the United States. I may fire a weapon illegally. I may buy arms illegally. I may do a lot of different things, but at the heart of it all, the overarching sin that I've committed is rebellion. I've committed treason. And that's that idea of transgression, and we find it in Psalm 51, verses 1 and 3. This verse had all three of these in there. The second one, of course, is the idea of iniquity, the idea of being perverse, twisted, warped. And we certainly understand the problem with something being warped, something that should be true, and it's warped. I liken it to this, the idea of a straight line. There's something very important about a straight line. When you look at NASA starts to calculate trajectories. They calculate trajectories with a straight line, and then they work from that. You can imagine if you fired a rocket and you're trying to hit a particular place, and you have that has to be a straight line to get it to a certain point. And if you're off by even half an inch when you fire that rocket, where do you think that rocket's going to end up? A half an inch here ends up being an incredible distance somewhere else. I mean, you're talking about long distances. Well, liken that to us when we start our journey for heaven. When we start out here, it's for many of us, it's a long journey. It's going to be a while, right? It's going to be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years maybe even 80 years. Some of us are lucky enough, we might even get 90 years out of it. But if we start off even slightly off of the mark when we first begin, where do you think we're going to be when it's time for us to say goodbye to this earth? We're going to be so far off the mark that we can't even see straight. So that idea of perversity and twisted, warped, so to speak. So that concept of iniquity. David, when he wrote this song, the idea of forgive me my iniquity, forgive me my perverseness, so to speak. And we think about it, we think about this flowery language, and we think about how, are we exaggerating things a little bit? But we're really not, are we? We're not really exaggerating when we say that when we engage in sin, we are perverse. We've got to remember the standard. The standard is perfect. There's no variation with the standard. So any deviation comes from us, not from God. God doesn't move. God doesn't change. God is always good. God is always perfect. God is always righteous. God is always just. God is always all of these things. So any deviation is on our part, not on God's part. Okay? All right. And the last one, of course, is the idea of sin. This is the one we typically think of. The idea of sin, to miss the mark or to fall short. So, for example, again, if you were trying to one I was thinking of most often, when I was a kid, there was a game that we played, and it was a tank game. You would calculate how far it took to fire your little rockets so that you could hit the other tank, and the other guy, of course, was trying to hit you. You had to calculate, right? You had to calculate how far they would go. You watch the game, and you realize, okay, it takes this far in order for this little rocket to hit where it's supposed to hit. I have to think ahead so that I hit the mark If I fall short, of course, my enemy has another opportunity to lay me out. And that was the big deal. You know, if you got one off and it was wrong, you were dreading it because it took a couple seconds to reload. While that other guy, boy, he had an opportunity now. He used your miss to calculate for himself, and he may not fall short of the mark. Now, I know that's kind of an imperfect example, but at the end of the day, you're trying to hit a target. And the good thing is it's not a moving target. God has set it out, and He said, here it is. All right. If you miss it, it's because you haven't aimed correctly. It's because you're not striving for the mark. All right. So anyway, those were the three that we found, and we found those, of course, all in the Old Testament in Psalm chapter 51. But now what I want to do is I want to go to the words for sin that we find in the New Testament. All right. So we got a couple of verses. So if everybody gets your Bible out, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd love if everybody would read. Keeps me from having to read. I read them already. Romans chapter 3. Romans 3:23. This one corresponds a little bit to the idea of sin or chata in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, but it is slightly different. So Romans 3:23, and whoever got that, go ahead and read it. Okay, everybody heard this verse before. It's kind of a standard. It's one that we use very often when people say, "Well, you know, I don't sin. I can't sin in Christ." Well, the Scripture tells us differently. Right? All have sinned. Everybody has sinned. If we didn't sin, then we have no need of Christ. But we all need Christ. It tells us that we all need Christ. So therefore, we have to know that we have all sinned. It says again, have what? Sin and fallen short of the glory of God. So the idea here is the idea of hamartia. That idea is to miss the mark. You can see that goes into the idea of sin or chata in the Hebrew, the idea of missing the mark, falling short. You're aiming for something, but you don't quite make it. You don't quite make it. Now, at the end of the day, is God concerned with whether we hit the mark or not? Does God look at what we do and say, you tried. You did your best. At the end of the day, that's really all. Listen, I've had members of the church that have said, in no uncertain terms, God just wants us to try our best. Is that really what God wants for us? Is that what He's after for us? Just simply to try our best? He gives us a mark because there's a mark to be had. There's a goal to be had, right? There's a goal to be had. He doesn't simply say, look, I'm throwing this out there. You know, when you've got small children, you might do that just to kind of just to give them an opportunity. You hear today about participation trophies and the idea that, well, not everybody's going to win, but everybody needs to feel good about trying. Well, when you've got small children, that might work. It might, because you don't want to completely kill some kid's drive when he's very young. But as they get a little bit older, what do you have to have? You have to have a goal. And if you don't make a goal, then you don't get the prize. You don't get the trophy. I've heard a lot of places that are trying to get away from the idea of valedictorian and salutatorian, because there are so many people there. You have one person, and they may hit that mark, but you might have somebody underneath them that missed it by just a little bit. Well, now they're going to feel bad because they didn't get where they needed to get in order to get valedictorian. You can see the problem with that. There's a real disconnect there. There's a target to be hit, and if you don't hit the target, you don't win the prize. See, here's the great thing about, of course, we understand about our Christian life. Everybody can hit the target. God doesn't narrow it down to one person. It's not like there's one person that's going to get saved. The very best person is going to get saved. Everybody else dies. Everybody else gets lost. That's not the way it works. God says that everybody can hit the mark. There's nothing about the mark that's impossible for anyone to get. So the idea, the concept that, well, God just simply wants us to try our best. Does He? Yes. But is that going to be good enough at the end of the day? Is it? No, it's not. That's not going to be good enough. The concept is that we are to hit the mark. the mark can be hit. It's not impossible. It is not impossible. So, the idea that somehow, God just wants us to try, and whatever we can do will be good enough, and He'll accept that, and we'll all march lockstep into heaven because I tried my best. Who determines whether you try your best? It's interesting. Well, I determine whether I tried my best. I'm the one that can decide that, and I'm going to plead my case before God. Well, I tried, God. I did everything I could. It reminds me of Adam, right? The whole goal was to not do what he did. And what's the first thing he said? But it was this woman you gave me. First thing he does is start throwing up excuses about why he couldn't hit that mark. Well, it was and then the woman. Well, it was the serpent that you allowed to come in here and tempt us. We're always going to find a way to excuse not hitting the mark, and that's not going to fly. God doesn't put up with excuses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. God not have an understanding. I've heard that if not more. I have an understanding. He's okay. We're okay. We're good with one another. Well, no, there's a goal to be hit. There's a mark that must be attained, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be very, very frustrated when they have to stand before God. They are. They have deluded themselves into thinking that God is going to accept anything less than hitting that mark. Now, here's the thing. God knows us, right? He knows that we're going to make mistakes. And because He knows that, He has given us a method by which we can come back to Him. But it doesn't mean that we're able to slack off simply because we have an opportunity to repent and come back. That's that concept, shall we sin so that grace shall abound? Well, no, heaven forbid. That's not what we do. We don't slack off simply because I know God's going to give me, going to take me back. And that happens way more often than we want to admit. People will make excuses for their lack of achievement. They'll make excuses for why aren't you any further along than you are? Why don't you know the Bible any than you did 30 years ago? Well, and first thing we do is we start making excuses. Well, the preacher just doesn't do a very good job of teaching. And the Bible classes just aren't very interesting to me. And I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this, and we start making excuses for all the reasons that we hit the mark. At the end of the day, who does it come back to? It comes back to us. All right. Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 12. 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 12. And that'll be the last verse for this one. Okay. So there's a mark to be had, right? When we sin, who do we sin against? We sin against God, we sin against Christ, but also who do we trespass against? The brethren, right? It's interesting. If you sit down and you do an analysis of sin, you think about how many people are actually harmed in the sin. We think, well, that's a victimless crime, it's a victimless sin. No one's really harmed. But at the end of the day, if you really stop to look at it, you see how many people are actually harmed. You are harmed because your relationship between you and God is damaged. Okay, very much so. All right, God is harmed. Now you don't think of God being harmed, but I may harm somebody even though they physically are not harmed, even financially they're not harmed, emotionally and spiritually they're harmed. We don't think about God being harmed, but He is. Okay. Now he is who He is, and He's immovable. He's not. This is one of the things. It gets to the point where you think how many times He's harmed on a daily basis. He's become somewhat used to it, I would say, but He is harmed because His relationship with you is harmed. When you love someone and they hurt you, what does that do? What does that do? When you love someone and they harm you, it hurts. It hurts. And why we think that God can't be hurt? Certainly not physically. I mean, he's not harmed physically or even spiritually, but he's harmed emotionally. It hurts him when his people sin. It hurts him when people err and sin against him. So we also have to understand that not only us and God, but our brethren are harmed when we sin. Whether they know it or not, they're harmed when we sin. The body is wounded. Okay? When one of us is in sin, when one of us is in error, the body itself is harmed. It's not functioning correctly. And sometimes the body is completely ignorant of it. It has no idea what's going on. But when a brother or sister is caught up in sin, even if it's in secret, even if it's in the privacy of their own home, they're engaging in some sort of behavior that's irresponsible or reckless or sinful or whatever it might be, the body itself is harmed, even though it's not aware of it. So it's an ongoing thing, and not in many cases it's kind of interesting how many times someone is in sin and the body of Christ is not aware of it, but the world is aware of it. You know, the world sometimes knows about the sin of brethren before the church knows the sin of the brethren, because we're pretty good at it. We're going to get pretty good at hiding it from the people that we're most concerned about finding out about it. But the world may be perfectly aware of it. You know, if the world may be perfectly aware that I'm hitting the bar every weekend, and I'm not just tipping one back. I'm getting sloppy drunk and having to be helped to my car. And they're having to call a taxi for me and getting me to my home. Now, the church may be completely unaware of that. You know, I'm pretty good at hiding it. But what happens at the end of the day? The church's influence is harmed. My influence is harmed. God is harmed. I'm harmed. And the church is harmed. There's a lot of things going on that we tend to think, well, if nobody knows about it, the church doesn't know about it, that's really just between me and God. And of course, then, God and I have an understanding. We have an understanding. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's way more damage than you could possibly imagine when somebody gets caught up in some sort of a sin. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You're right. When we talk about our influence, we cannot underestimate. Excuse me. We cannot underestimate the power that our influence has, and we cannot underestimate not only for the good but for the bad. We can't underestimate the kind of power of the good power that our influence can have. And that's certainly what we want to achieve. We want that. We want the good influence to be there, but we cannot underestimate the power of a bad influence and what it does to us, what it does to the people that we're trying to reach. When you think about what this fellow did, the far-reaching effects And I know there's no doubt in my mind that this guy had no intention of doing that. There was no intention of being a bad influence. The problem was he had no care for it anyway. There was little concern, not knowing that that influence was a powerful one, whether he wanted to acknowledge that or not. His needs took precedence over the needs of the church. That's all there was to it. What I wanted to do was the most important thing. At the heart of sin really is selfishness, isn't it? I mean, really, at the end of the day, at the heart of virtually every sin is selfishness. My wants and my needs more than the truth, more than correct behavior, more than righteousness. I want what I want, and I want it right now. Why he felt he needed to do that, I don't know. That's something he has to explain. He doesn't have to explain it to me, but that's something he's got to be able to explain. But at the end of the day, he wanted what he wanted, and it took him to a place that he didn't need to be. His influence was definitely harm, sure. Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't as good a thing as he thought, right? It raided the house. Mm. Mm. Yeah, I can't agree with that idea that you can't face up to it. I mean, that's part of being a. I don't know. I believe me. I as far as I'm concerned, that's what you got to do as a grown human being. You got to face up to what you do. I mean, you know. All right, Romans 4:15. Who's got Romans 4:15?
Because the law brings about wrath, for where there is no law, there is
All right. So the idea here is transgression. This is a different word than the one we used in the Old Testament. This is one for the New Testament. The one here is parabasis. Parabasis. Now, parabasis is the idea of trespass. Everybody here knows what it means to trespass. Whether we've done it or not, we understand what it means. You're walking through the woods and you see a barbed wire fence. And hanging on that barbed wire fence says a little sign that says "No trespassing." What do? Turn around and go back. You don't keep going through. Now there are a lot of people who they have no right to fence this in. Well, here's the thing. It's called private property. They can do that if they desire to do that. I remember when we were kids and we would be out playing around, and we would be horsing around in the woods and everything like that. For the most part, everybody around where we were, they were pretty fine with it. They knew that we were small kids. We're not likely to harm anything. We're not going to do anything dangerous or damage their property. But at the end of the day, when as kids, we knew that when there was a big yellow sign that says "No trespassing," we didn't trespass. We didn't go into that property. We would turn around and say, "Well, okay, this is where we end. We got to go back or go another direction, go down the side of the fence." And for the most part, people were pretty okay with it. And at the end of the day, likely, even if we had trespassed, the people that owned the property, being young kids, we probably would not have gotten into too much trouble. They're looking mainly for adults that are going to go in and try to harm things or try to steal something or try to poach wildlife off the land or whatever it might be. But even a small child, if they can read and they can understand, when you see the word no trespassing, it means no trespassing. You stop where you are. To go onto the person's land is a violation of the agreement, and that agreement is, this is my property, this is mine. Now let's take that and let's pull it forward in regards to God. Now, how do we understand this? How do we understand the idea of no trespassing when it comes to God? God has done what? All right, He's got this fence. Right? He says, this is where you stop. You don't go further than this. I've allowed you liberty, and you can go to this point, but you can go no further. So he's got this sign up, and it says, no trespassing. Essentially, it's the same thing, means the same thing to us as Christians as that sign did to kids. You stop here. You don't go any further. Under the law of Christ, we're given a lot of liberty, especially in regards to what the people under the Old Testament, what they liked, were bound to. They're bound to the law. And if you want to talk about a law, man, go to the law. We studied it. We studied the book of Leviticus several years ago. And the concept of what the law of Moses entailed, it was so complicated. There was so much there. And the whole point was that law was to dictate virtually every aspect of their life. I mean, it was every aspect of their life. The relationships that they had with one another, the relationships that they had with people outside of Israel, the relationships that shop owners had with their customers, that neighbors had with one another, that the people had with the priests, that God had with them. It dictated every aspect of their life. Now, of course, we're under the law of Christ. The law of Christ is a law of liberty. We're no longer bound by that. There are a lot of things that today, the way that we're doing things now, we're already in violation of the law of Moses in about 5 different ways. But we're not under the law of Moses. Okay, we're under the law of Christ. We're given a great deal of liberty. Okay, right now we're in the wrong place to worship God under the old law, but we're not under the old law. All right. Did anybody here bring an animal sacrifice? No. All right. Well, good. You don't have to, because we're under the law of Christ. We're under the law of Moses. Ladies, I hate to say it, but you wouldn't be in here. Okay, this would be for the men. Men would come in, they would offer up their animals. The treasury, the way that we do things, of course, the elements of the Lord's Supper wouldn't be in here. There's a lot of things that are different. And He has said He's given us liberty to a certain point, but there are always people who are going to take that law of liberty, they're going to extend it a little bit further. He says, even under the law of Christ, it's a law of liberty. You're able to do certain things, right? Men and women are able to meet together. We sing songs of praise with one another. We have passed the Lord's Supper together. We eat it together. We pray together. We sing together. We worship together. All of these things. But then there's certain things He says you're not to do this, right? In the assembly, are women to take a position of authority in the assembly? Scripture says no. That's that trespassing. Don't do that. And again, you have churches who've said, "Yeah, you see, no trespassing. I'm just going to move it." All right, and as if by moving it, it no longer exists. I'm going to put a piece of cloth over it so it can't be seen. Is that no trespassing sign still there? Yeah. I'm going to move the fence. There are people who do that, right? I don't like where that fence is. It hems me in too much. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that fence. I'm going to move that fence a little bit. I'm going to back it up a little bit. At the end of the day, the owner put the fence up there. The fence is where it's supposed to be. The sign where it's supposed to be. And the idea of no trespassing, it doesn't matter our opinion of it. It's there. And for us to trespass against the sign, against that commandment, is sin. It is sin for us. So parabos is the idea of trespass. We've got to stay on the right side of the line, right? No trespassing. All right? Romans 4:25. Romans 4:25. All right. So he did what because of our offenses? He said what? He was what? He was delivered up. Now we understand what that means, right? He was delivered up. How was he delivered up? He was convicted wrongly of a crime, and he was delivered up by the authorities he was delivered up by the Jews to the authorities to be killed on our behalf. And that's essentially what it was. Right? They wanted him out of the way. They convicted him of a crime that he didn't commit, and they delivered him up, and he was delivered up for our offenses. So the idea here is the word that we're looking at here is paraptoma. That's the Greek word, paraptoma. The word paraptoma means falling where we should have stood. Interesting. Falling where we should have stood. When I was working on the lesson, I was thinking about some examples, and I don't know about you guys, but I always enjoy watching movies about the war, whether it's World War II, World War I, Vietnam, whatever it might be. You know, when they're devising these stories, they always have to have some sort of you have to have it excited. You know, sometimes I've never served, but I do know that I've talked to a lot of guys, and they said, you know, the Army really is basically standing around, and it's broken up by a little bit of fighting here and there. Basically, you stand around most of the time, waiting for something to happen. And then there's a little fighting, and it's exciting, and then it stops, and you stand around for a little while longer, and you move stuff around from here, this place to this. So what they have to do in the movies, they have to punch up a little bit. And I don't know how many times I've watched a movie where you have a guy that's been put on guard duty. You need to stay alert, don't fall asleep. Well, you know, the first thing that happens when the lead character tells this guy on guard duty, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. That's foreshadowing, right? Because you know what's going to happen. What's that guy going to do? He's going to fall asleep. I mean, it's kind of like he's telling the audience, hey, be prepared. This guy's going to fall asleep, and there's going to be some catastrophic problem that's going to happen because this guy fell asleep. And when I think about this idea of falling where we should have stood, that's what I think of. It's basically feeling where we're given every opportunity to do the right thing, and we fall anyway. We're not talking about a movie where there's this one guy, he's got one machine gun, and there's wave after wave of Japanese or German soldiers coming at him, and they've just got all of this artillery and everything like that, and he did everything he possibly could, but he just couldn't stand up against the flow. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about somebody with every opportunity to stand up, to do what it is he's supposed to do, to follow through on the task, so to speak, was just didn't do it. He fell where he should have stood. He failed where he should have succeeded, given all the opportunities to succeed. So you think about that in regards to us. Have we been given every tool for success in our Christian life? Has God failed to give us anything that we need in order to succeed where we need to succeed? It says God is faithful in all things. So if there's anything that we are in need of to succeed in our Christian life, it's been given to us. He's given us the Word. He's given us the Spirit. He's given us the church. He's given us everything that we need to succeed. And yet, in spite of everything everything that we need to succeed, yet still, time and again, people fall. They fall where they should have stood. You know, this guy every time that you watch these movies, this guy, there's no reason for him to fall short of to shirk his duty. There's no reason for it. It's not like somebody came in and knocked him in the back of the head and he passed out because somebody knocked him unconscious. He said, this is your responsibility. You need to stay awake and be on guard duty. They're going to try to get us tonight, so we need you to stay awake and do it. I always found that they always pick the guy that you was kind of a louse anyway. They always pick the guy that's the louse to be on guard duty. They never pick the hero. It's always some guy that you can, he needs to go anyway. But at the end of the day, there was a reason for that failure. And today, when we think about that, there's no reason for us to fail, is there? As Christians, there's no genuine reason for us to fail. But what do? We always make excuses, don't we? We always find excuses for people to, for us to. And what do we do? It's interesting that even though the end result of that is still the same, we feel that if we come up with an excuse, then somehow the consequences for us will be less, right? What's the reason that I didn't succeed? Well, what's the reason you didn't succeed? And we'll come up with the most pathetic excuse that we possibly can, as if that's somehow going to excuse our abject failure at doing something that we have no reason to fail at. And there it is. The idea of falling where we should have stood. Anybody got any questions so far? Let's see if we can get one more in here. Matthew 7:23. Matthew 7:23. Lawlessness. All right, the Greek word here is anomia. It means basically one who is without the law. And again, I'm sitting there. I'm thinking of. I'm looking through these words and I'm finding the idea of laws. Does anybody here like watching westerns? I love watching westerns. I like the old westerns. They're clean. And it's easy to tell who's the good guy and the bad. I think in the 70s it got to the point where they tried to blur the lines about, you have the good guy, but he's not really that good. You had this. I think it started with Clint Eastwood, where he's the good guy, but he's not that good of a person. I like the old ones, where it's like you saw that guy riding in, that's the good guy. You can hang your hat on that guy right there because he's the good guy. Everything he does is good. Now, he may make mistakes, but he's the good guy. But I love watching the old westerns, and I always found it very interesting that they always, in a lot of these old westerns, especially the old John Wayne westerns, Randolph Scott westerns, they would always be on this trip, and they would always, they'd be on a wagon train or a group of guys that'd be on a cattle drive, whatever it is. They'd always get to a certain point, and they'd say, "Well, from here on in, it's law. This is where the bandits are. This is lawless country right here. There's no law," and they always say something. There's no law for 300 miles or whatever it is, whatever the idea. And essentially, that's what it is. It means that in this, where we're getting ready to go into, law has been suspended. There is no law. Now, does the law supersede? Absolutely. But the people that live here don't recognize law. They're going to do what they want to do. If they see what you have and they want it, they're just going to come and they're going to take it by force if they want to. Okay? If they don't like you, they'll shoot you. And again, you just start going into watching these old westerns, and you'll find this in almost every single one of them. There'll be at least one case of this. The idea of there's an area where the law just does not apply. Essentially, that's what we're talking about here, the idea of lawlessness. Ye who practice lawlessness. So now we understand who came up with the law. Who devised the law? Yeah, God devised the law. God is a God of law. God is a law. God is a God of order. Remember the admonition to the church: let all things be done decently and in order. Whether or not it's under the old law, the law of Moses, or rather it's under the law of Christ, there were still the way they were to do things, even today, decently and in order. That idea of order means according to law. The law never disappeared from the earth. The law changed. The law of Christ superseded the law of Moses. But the law never disappeared. And this was a big problem in the first century. There were those who believed that since the law of Moses had been superseded, it was no longer there, that there was no law. Christ had come to abolish the law, and then that since there is no law, we could do whatever we wanted to do. And it would all be okay because we're in Christ. Well, there's a problem. Obviously, there's an issue with that. So what were people doing? Whatever they wanted to do. And they would do it under the law, they would do it under in the name of Christ, and think that that would be okay. God would be accepting of that. And God's saying, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's always going to be some sort of order or law. And now we're under the law of Christ. There's order to be expected of the church. All right. So, you people who practice lawlessness, as if you are not bound by anything, what's going to happen to people who practice lawlessness? What's going to be the end result? Okay, you look at the people in the movies. You know, those people who practice lawlessness. What was the end result of those guys? So, you know, they would send people in there. They would drag them out of that lawless territory. Such and such. You know, he's killed somebody. He's escaped into the territories. So what would you do? You'd mount a posse. You'd get a bunch of guys together and you'd head into that territory. You'd find a guy and you drag him back to face the law. Well, that's essentially what's going to happen. People are going to face the law, whether they want to be under the law or not, whether they even acknowledge the law or not. People are going to have to face the law. That's what's going to happen to these people who believe that while there's no law in Christ, and there are still people who believe that. I mean, normal human beings who believe in Christ, they profess Christ, but they're so misguided about what it means to be in obedience to Christ. They believe that if you're in Christ, that you can do anything you want to do, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Christ is the only one that can judge them, and apparently He's not going to be that harsh a judge. Well, that's a dangerous way to think because God is a judge God, and He's not going to be swayed by this idea of the law of Christ is the law of liberty. I can do what I want to do. So be careful, people who practice lawlessness. They're going to face consequences of that lawlessness. You know, in the movies, they hung them, right? So they dragged them back. They always dragged them back to civilization, dragged them back to some army fort, and then they passed judgment on them and they hang them by the neck until they are dead. May God have mercy on their souls. You always saw that. And the same thing is true today. People who practice lawlessness, they will be dragged back and they will face the law. That law that they rejected, they will still have to face that law. We almost got done with one more. We'll talk about that next week. I do. And I've been drinking sipping my coffee.